Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU Audiobooks, Indira Gandhi National Open University, Staff Training and Research Institute of Distance Education, STRIDE, Master's Degree Programs, Master of Arts, Distance Education, MADE, Second Year, MDE, 419 Staff Training and Development in Distance Education, Block-2 Staff Development Perspectives, Unit 1, Training to Develop Self-Learning Print Materials. 1.0 Introduction. You are aware that self-learning print materials impart measurable, educational outcomes to specified target groups of learners. Irrespective of format used, there are some features which are common to any self-learning materials. The major chunk of any system of distance education is concerned with materials, and therefore they pay special attention to the training of their faculty course writers in this area. It is in this context that this unit addresses itself to the training of course writers. You will notice we have presented the sections in terms of sessions so as to give you a feel of a training program. We have discussed issues such as the concept of open distance education, systems approach, content analysis, etc. We have presented materials which you may like to use as slides using PowerPoint. The attempt in this unit is to give you a training kit for preparing course writers. The kit is only in the form of outline, but we do hope that you will use it appropriately for your purposes. You would also notice that this unit does not contain exercises, because we have presented the whole unit as an activity itself. 1.1 Objectives. This unit purports to give you an idea about training of those who are involved in course development. After going through this unit, you should be able to times plan, design and implement a training program for course writers. Times design individual session plan for the training program, and times improve the materials presented in the unit according to your own situation. 1.2 Open distance education. You may see below an example of a session plan. 1 hour 30 minutes. Session title, Open and Distance Education. Topics, times concept of open distance education, times why open distance education, times characteristics of distance education, flexible learning, online learning, blended learning, times evolving distance education. Objectives of the session. After attending this session, you should be able to times define distance education, times define open education, flexible education, online learning, blended learning, and times discuss show distance education evolved during the last few decades, strategies, times slides, PowerPoint presentation, times interaction, times discussion, resources, times reading materials, handbook, handouts, times LCD projector, times paper writing pad, pen, etc., times flip chart, times video on Open University, evaluation, times verbal feedback, times written report from the participants. You may start your discussion with known concept, i.e. conventional education. You may compare conventional education, distance education, and open education. You may discuss why distance education is important, and then how distance education. You may discuss various terminologies like flexible education, online learning, blended learning, and so on. Why open and distance education? Socioacademic dynamics make distance education relevant both in the developed and developing economies, changing social norms, values, etc. Example, the movement from what is basically an agrarian society through industrial and information societies to a learning society, influence educational patterns, or the vice versa. Information explosion warrants continuous training, re-education and retraining of various personnel to keep pace with the changing environments. Population explosion has been making increasing demand for higher education. There is a clear mismatch between demand and supply. Implication, many have to be educated or trained at a shorter period, information flow being tremendous and even increasing, and without much of duplication efforts. The whole process should be cost-effective without compromising on the quality standard, complementing the traditional educational patterns, which are inadequate to take up these responsibilities because of obvious reasons. Distance education has potential to alleviate the problems and ameliorate the situation. A few sample materials are given below for PowerPoint presentation, which you may later improve on to suit your situation. Slide 1. Conventional education times face-to-face teaching learning times teacher responsible for teaching times pre-designed syllabus times word of mouth for communication times interaction activities immediate feedback times learning full-time and teacher-based. Slide 2. Distance education times minimum face-to-face contact times print and non-print media used times interaction mainly through media times learning learner-based times learner support services times variety of evaluation methods times learner choice for selection of content, selection of media, pace of study. Place of study, entry and exit. Slide 3. Distance education times quasi-permanent separation of teacher and learner times influence of an educational organization, planning, preparation of materials, support services etc. times use of media to unite the teachers and learners and carry the content of the course times provision of two-way communication times quasi-permanent absence of learning groups. Slide 4. Open learning. Organized educational activity based on the use of teaching materials in which constraints on study are minimized either in terms of access or of time and place, pace and so on. Illustrations times relaxation during admission, age, qualification, times relaxation with regard to place and time of study, times relaxation with regard to selection of courses. Slide 5. Flexible learning times convergence of multimodal learning times learner choice and freedom to choose path times institutional flexibility to cater for all learner needs as also diversified needs of each learner times learner-centered flexible times equity in curriculum and pedagogy times generic skills and lifelong learning. Slide 6. Online learning times collaborative engagement times student-student and student-tutor interaction times interactivity times more student activity times both synchronous and asynchronous interaction times instant feedback times intelligent flexible feedback times online learning, interaction, mentoring, collaboration, knowledge construction and negotiation, assignments, evaluation and feedback, certification. Slide 7. Blended learning times blending of strategies towards learning performance times blending of approaches, F2F, classroom, workshops, tutorials, on-the-job, training, F2F informal, work teams, peer interaction, role plays, self-paced learning, web modules, online resources, audio and video, self-learning materials, virtual learning, performance support, help systems, knowledge database, decision support tools, evolving distance education, times early correspondence education, times still continuing distance education, times open learning, flexible learning, distributed learning. Times current online learning, computer-mediated communication, times evolving blended learning. 1.3 Process of course production. Let us consider another session plan. Session plan, 1 hour 30 minutes. Session title, Process of course production. Topics, times course planning, times course development, times course production. Objectives of the session. After attending the session, you should be able to times plan developing a course in your own institution, times you should be able to follow steps for course development, times you should be able to follow steps for course production strategies, times slides, PowerPoint presentation, times interaction, times discussion, resources, times reading materials, handbook, handouts, times LCD projector, times paper writing pad, pen etc., times flip chart, times video on Open University, evaluation, times verbal feedback, times written report from the participants. In this session, you may discuss the process of course preparation. You may discuss the first stage course planning. The main points to be discussed are need assessment, how to define objectives of the program course, analysis of resources, availability of resources, and suitable approach for course delivery. Briefly discuss the development process, how to arrange the topics in courses, blocks, and units lessons. Also discuss the course, production stage, printing, preparation of non-print media, and so on. A few sample materials are given below for PowerPoint presentation, which you may later improve on to suit your situation. Slide 9, Course planning, times assessment of needs, times defining objectives, times identify the most important objectives, times state objectives in comprehensive terms, times analyzing resources and constraints, times budgetary provision, times availability of media, print, audio, video. Phase 2. Phase, contact, times approaches, independent, complementary, supplementary, integrated, times delivery of teaching materials. Slide 10, Course development, times arranging the topics, times following logical sequence, times textual body covering a topic called unit, lesson, times preparing unit outlines, times writing the text. Slide 11, Course production, times print material, times non-print material, times editing, content, language, format, times CRC preparation, times printing. 1.4 Introduction to Self-Learning Materials, Session Plan, 1 hour 30 minutes, Session Title, Introduction to Self-Learning Materials, Topics, times Characteristics of Self-Learning Materials, times Difference between Self-Learning Materials and Textbook, times Sample Program Structure of an Open University, Objectives of the session. After attending this session, you should be able to times discuss the characteristics of self-learning materials, times differentiate between the self-learning materials and textbook, and times explain the structure of a particular program, strategies, times slides, PowerPoint presentation, times interaction, times discussion, resources, times reading materials, handbook, handouts, times LCD projector, times paper writing pad, pen etc., times flip chart, times video on Open University, evaluation, times verbal feedback, times written report from the participants. In this session, you may discuss the characteristics of self-learning materials and can discuss the structure of the distance learning program with an example. Slide 12. Characteristics of self-learning material, times self-explanatory, times self-directed, times self-motivated, times self-contained, times self-evaluated. Slide 13, Program structure, IGNOU sample, the curriculum or combination of courses in a particular field of study, course, teaching materials and other components of study, text, audio, video, contact session, project, laboratory work, assignments, block, appears in the form of booklet. Around 60/80 printed, pages, A4 size paper. Presents one unified theme. Slide 14, Unit, a self-contained portion of a distance teaching text distinct from other portions. Approx 5,000 to 6,000 words. Should contain orientation for the student, introducing him to the content, explanations of the topics covered, and exercises to help the student learn the material. Divided into sections and subsections for the clarity of the presentation of concepts, information, illustration, etc. 1.5 Beginning part of unit, session plan, 1 hour 30 minutes, session title, beginning part of a unit, topics, unit structure, beginning part of a unit, title, objectives, introduction, objectives of the session. After attending this session, you should be able to times describe the structure of a unit, Times discuss how to write the objectives of a unit, and times discuss how to write the introduction of a unit, strategies, times slides, PowerPoint presentation, times interaction, times discussion, resources, times reading materials, handbook, handouts, times LCD projector, times paper writing pad, pen, etc., times flip chart, times video on Open University, evaluation, times verbal feedback, times written report from the participants. In this session, you may discuss how to develop the beginning part of a unit. You should focus on the development of structure of a unit, formulating objectives of a unit, and writing introduction of a unit. Slide 15. Unit structure, Unit X, X.0 objectives, X.1. Introduction, X.2 Section 1, Main Theme, X.2.1 Subsection 1 of Section 1, X.2.2 Subsection 2 of Section 1. Check your progress, activity, X.3 Section 2, Main Theme, X.3.1 Subsection 1 of Section 2, X.3.2 Subsection 2 of Section 2, Slide 16, Beginning of a unit, times structure of the unit, times title, precise, clear, communicative, times contents outline structure, heading, subheadings of main themes, times objectives, times introduction. Slide 17, Unit structure. Detailed itemization of the content broken into sections and subsections, times presents a clear outline of the content, main, themes, subthemes, and their logical linkages, times helps the learner overview the text, locate the desired content, times makes the text more learner-oriented. Slide 18, Numbering section and subsection. Times should be simple and clear, times should make the content more accessible. Unit 3, times Section 1 of Unit 3, 3.1, times Section 2 of Unit 3, 3.2, times 1, sent subsection of Section 2 of Unit 3, 3.2.1, times 2, ND subsection of Section 2 of Unit 3, 3.2.2. Slide 19, Objectives of Unit. Presentation of objectives in behavioral terms, observable and/or measurable. Three components of a complete statement of objective. In behavioral terms, I term that identify behavior or action, a verb is used. 2. Standard or level, how well the learner is to perform. 3. Condition, situation under which the learner is to perform. Slide 20, Objectives, examples. 1. Given the names of 7 Prime Ministers of India. You should be able to list them in chronological order, without any error. 2. After 1 week practice, you should be able to calculate ta and da for local journey. 3. You should be able to argue with your friends with regard to bad effect of smoking. Slide 21, Kind of objectives, types of performance called for. Cognitive domain, objectives pertain to the development of mental processes, like remembering, thinking, analyzing, solving problem, and so on. Use of verbs, recall, recognize, reproduce, distinguish, differentiate, assess, list, analyze, verify, describe, identify, categorize, and so on. Slide 22, Psychomotor domain, practical skills involved in manipulating tools, machines or performing experiments, engaging, construction of buildings, and so on. Use of verbs, draw, prepare, handle, manipulate, compute, calculate, construct, tabulate, build, collect, assemble, dismantle, devise, calibrate, conduct, sketch, and so on. Slide 23, Affective domain, development of interest, attitudes, values toward certain ideas and activities. Use of verbs, argue, inquire, answer, share, defend, praise, pursue, negotiate, respond, and so on. Slide 24, Introduction of unit, explains the content being discussed in a particular unit, relates the unit with the previous unit existing knowledge, motivates the learner. Components of introduction, structural, previous, present, future unit, thematic, main concept, theme, present unit, guidance, what the learner supposed to do before starts reading the unit, special activities, practical works, reference, articles and books, equipment, related audio-video materials, time needed to complete the unit, etc. Introduction. The introduction of a unit serves as an access device when it explains the content being discussed in the particular unit, relates the unit with previous units and also with the existing knowledge of the students. The introduction should be brief to provide adequate help to the students in starting their study. In the introduction, you need to receive, welcome and motivate the students by giving them the impression that what they are going to study in the unit. There are three components of an introduction. I. Structural component. In an introduction, you may give information about the previous content, i.e. what is gone before. Thus, you may establish a link between what a learner has already learned and what he is going to study in the unit at hand. 2. Thematic component. This is an overview describing the main concepts to be discussed in a particular unit. Its function is to attract the students' interest and focus their attention on the content given in the unit. Besides, it should build a basis for and promise friendly and purposeful communication with learners. It is done best by talking informally about the items in the structure, i.e. theme of the unit, what content we have planned to include in this unit, etc. 3. Guidance component. It provides study guidance to the students. It explains the study requirements such as time, special activities, back, cross-references, equipment, books, etc. It should inform the students about all that he needs to get the best out of the unit. 1.6 Body and ending part of unit, session plan, 1 hour 30 minutes. Session title, body and ending part of unit, topics, times content analysis, times principles of ordering the contents, times language, times self-assessment, times illustrations, objectives of the session. After attending this session, you should be able to times discuss how to develop the contents, section-wise, times develop self-assessment questions, times discuss how to use illustrations, and times discuss how to write the end part of a unit, strategies, times slides, PowerPoint presentation, times interaction, times discussion, resources, times reading materials, handbook, handouts, times LCD projector, times paper writing pad, pen, etc., times flip chart, times video on Open University, evaluation, times verbal feedback, times written report from the participants. In this session, you may discuss how to analyze the contents, how to order the contents, how to use illustrations, how to write self-assessment questions, what kind of language can be used in self-learning materials, and then you may discuss the ending part of the unit, i.e. how to write summary, answers to check your progress, glossary, references, reflective questions, and so on. Content analysis, times determines course description and breaks down the course into successive blocks, times determines the content of the assigned block and breaks down the content into main units. Times determines the concept of each unit and breaks down the concept into topics, times determines the content of each subconcept and breaks them down into smaller concepts, times group the main concepts, subconcepts into appropriate order, model, flowchart format, outline format, dot, slide 25, body part of a unit, times headings, subheadings with numbering, times in-text questions, times check your progress, times signposts, fixed symbols, 10, instrument, open, book, etc., times illustrations, graphics, pictures, etc. Slide 26, ordering or arranging the content, few principles, times from known to unknown, times from simple to complex, times from concrete to abstract, times from actual to representative, times from specific to general, times from earliest to latest. After arranging the contents, we have to allot a serial number to every step, section and subsection. There can be various ways of numbering steps, sections and subsections. The main consideration should be that the number is simple, clear and it makes the content more accessible. One way could be to give a serial number to your unit. Suppose that you have allotted serial number 3, whole number to the unit. The steps sections may be numbered in a sequence using decimal point, e.g. 3.1, 3.2, 3.3. Similarly, a subsection may be represented using second decimal points, e.g. under section 3.1, subsections may be 3. 1.1, 3.1.2, 3.1.3, and so on. Slide 27. Language times course writer to decide based on his experience the level of language for the target group times the unit should not make learners consult the dictionary. Quite often times sentence, short and simple, times vocabulary, simple known words, times paragraphs, small paragraph, one idea in one paragraph, times conversational and friendly language. Try to write as you speak, times use of personal pronouns, use of you and we, writing should be personal, warm and brief. Slide 28. Illustrations, times photographs, times graphs, times line diagrams, times maps, times charts, times cartoons, times drawings, times tables, etc. Slide 29. Check your progress questions. Times true-false. Times matching, times fill in the blanks, times completion of sentences, times sequencing, times multiple choice, times problem solving, times descriptive, times crossword puzzle, times graphic-based questions. Slide 30. Ending, times summary, paragraphs, matrices, table, diagram, etc., times answers to self-assessment questions, times glossary, times reference materials, times assignments, times suggested readings. 1.7 Summary. In this unit, we have presented an outline of a training program for course writers. In this context, we have provided sample session plans, sample slides, and brief discussions on some important areas. The main idea is that you may prepare a session plan and resource materials while taking part in a training program for the course writers as a resource person. In our last block, 5, we have presented training design and reports of 2 training programs conducted by us in IGNOU. Thank you. Subscribe to our channel for more updates, and we will see you with the next chapter.